Aye. All right, we'll call the meeting of the General Government and Finance Committee to order at 6 p.m. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with section 19.83 and 19.84 Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call. All members are present. And with that, we will move to approval of the minutes of July 19th, 2021.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve the minutes. Any comments, corrections, any discussion? Not, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment that is not, I guess, a comment that wouldn't be on an agenda item tonight? Right? If not, we will move to new business, and we'll start with item A, Wisconsin Employee Trust Funds Income Continuation Insurance for Employees.
Thank you. Thank you. This was an item that was brought up by Paula Winter. She is the deputy treasurer, and it's something that we're both familiar with. This program allows for village employees and for the village to participate with this program that is at no cost to the village or the employees, and allows for continuation of benefits after they've been out for 30 days for medical reasons. Part of the process is a resolution that goes before the village board, and then after that, once it's approved, employees do have to complete an application as part of the process.
Completely volunteer, correct?
It is, and there's no cost. So it's a win-win for both the village and the employee, except for the cost of turning the paperwork in and that kind of thing.
There's no cost to the employee either?
No, there is not. They do have to be accepted by ETF by this, but if they are eligible, then there's no cost for the program.
Trustees eligible for this?
Not that I'm aware of.
How do they fund it?
That's a good question. It's been in place for some years.
It's probably part of the benefits of the.
That's it. I make a motion to approve. I'll second.
All right.
Thank you.
We have a motion to approve the income continuation insurance, and this has to go to the village board. Is that right? So it's push to the village board. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, item B, employee benefits presentation.
If I could just to kick this off, a few months ago we appeared before General Government and Finance, and we've talked about the challenges that we've been facing with our employee health care expenses. We've had a number of large cases over the past few years that have driven up our claims costs. We have with us tonight Carmen Winkleman and her colleagues who are our benefits consultants. They did promise to come back with some additional ideas, recommendations for the committee and the village board to consider in order to try to more effectively manage these claims expenses. So with that, I'll let Carmen for her report.
Thank you.
Carmen Winkleman with R&R Insurance. I have with me Chad Robinson. He is our Director of Analytics.
What is his name, ma'am?
Chad Robinson.
Thank you.
I have Dave Lancaster. He is our Executive Vice President of Employee with us today. So we have an agenda. We'll go through the agenda, and then Chad's going to take a couple of the slides, and I'm going to take a couple of slides that, we can explain what our thoughts are and what we are looking at this year. So the agenda is we're going to look at your self-funded trend. So where your plan has been going the past few years. Large claimants, I was here in March, we kind of talked about that a little bit, where your large claimants kind of were your, but a little bit of the issue that was coming into play with the renewal last year. We're going to go through some plan design changes, wellness and premium contribution changes, marketing efforts, where we're going to be marketing it to, and the marketing trends, and also our renewal timeline. So we'll kind of go through those different things and kind of give you an idea of where we want to be and then questions. So I'm going to have Tad talk about.
Thank you, Carmen. and Thank you, everybody. Should I wait for the?
I think we should go ahead if that's okay with the committee. We are working to get this on screen so those at home can view it as well, but that may take a couple of minutes.
Thank you. So what I want to do first is, as we look at page 4, talk about where the village has been over the last 8 years from a cost perspective. Within the medical insurance industry, one of the most common things that we do, price things out at a per employee per year basis. So if we look back on the chart on page 4, you'll see in 2013, the cost tip per employee was $18,300 for the village. That represents the fixed costs of administration and processing of the claims, as well as the actual claims costs themselves. What we have done on this chart is basically viewed it as what would happen if the village had done nothing and there had been just a standardized trend of 9% over the last 8 years. Within the medical insurance field, and when I say medical insurance, I do mean medical and prescription drug included. 9% is about what the average would be. It's ranged from 8 to about 11.5. So had the village done absolutely nothing, you would notice that by 2020, that number would be about $26,500. Through the actions of the village and working through different plan design changes, different contribution strategies, you've been able to mitigate that to where you're now looking at about $8,900. So basically a change of about $547 over the course of 8 years. I can tell you within our industry that is best in class over that time. To be able to keep your costs neutral as everybody else is continuing to see increases is something that really the village should be commended for. It has been a very, very good. But that does not say the entire story, simply because there have been cost increases, especially in the last 3 to 4 years, which are really due to some high cost claimants that are. If you flip over to page 5, what we have done here is show you the top 3 high cost claimants on an annual basis from 2016 through the first 7 months of 2021. You'll notice in 2016, 2017, a few claimants over $100,000. At your size and number of employees on the plan, that is fully to be expected. Basically, for every 100 employees you have on the plan, we would anticipate you're going to have somewhere around 4 to 5 employees or members that would reach $100,000 over the course. Where things started to shift for you would have been in 2018. You had a cancer member or a member who had cancer at $635,000. Now, while the village did not pay all of that, you have stop loss protection to help mitigate some of those costs. It does then factor into the next year's renewal, so you do see a premium increase in that. You can see in here as we start going forward on 2018, there is a cancer with the number 1 next to it. That will represent an individual that will then reappear in 2020 and then again in 2021. So as you can see, 2018, you started to have some high costs. 2019, the high costs continued as you now had a member at $300,000. You will notice that that person with kidney with the number next to it also appears in 2020 high cost claimant. I can tell you that as of today, that person is no as they have left the village. So that will be something we will be monitoring as we go through your renewal for 1/1/22. That is important to note because what we look at is really what are your costs going to be going forward, not necessarily what has happened Any questions or comments regarding these first? Yes.
Whoops, excuse me. How many employees are there this year?
There's currently 104 employees on the plan, representing about 150, 60 total members.
How many do we have on high risk?
So on the high risk, so basically what we represent as high risk would be half or 50% on your stop loss, so about 25,000 or more. Year to date, you're at, I believe, 7.
Thank you.
If there's no further questions, we can continue on to page 7. We'll start talking a little bit about some plan design changes that we've put forth as potential, and what is the cost mitigation that is associated with these. I do want to caveat when I start talking about cost mitigation, I'm referring to primarily a shift in cost from the village to members. However, there is a small percentage of that in which, as cost to the member shift, members will no longer seek treatment. So then claims will come down as a result. I can tell you that that is a very small, minute percentage. Typically what we see is that somebody, instead of maybe using an office visit, may look to something that's more quick care clinic or telemedicine. That is something that we all. What we did on page 7 here is looking at your current gold plan, which is a $1,000 deductible for the single, $3,000 deductible for the family plan. Plan does have copays that are built in behind it. So if a member does visit the doctor's office or does go pick up a prescription drug, they do just have a copay associated with that. We also then have a acronym in here called MOOP. What that stands for is maximum out of pocket. What that represents is the maximum exposure a member can have as part of the plan. Once they exceed that, the plan, or in your case, the village, would pay for the remainder up to the specific deductible on an individual basis. As we went through and made a few optional changes here, you'll notice that the mitigation goes up with each of them. On the first one, what we did is we increased that maximum out of pocket. So we increased it up to 5,000 and 10,000. We also lowered the family deductible. One of the things we see within the industry is you typically will have family deductible at either 2 times or 3 times the single. I can tell you that about 90% of all of our clients, it is at 2 times, whereas you currently do have it at 3 times going from a. Under that first category, making those changes, we would expect a mitigation of about $45,000. On line 2, if you not make any changes to the deductible and you keep it at a 3 times ratio, that goes up to about $55,000. On the bottom line, this would be a rather significant change, changing the deductible to a $2,000 for the single, $4,000 for the family. That is about $100,000 annual mitigation. We also would then set the maximum out of pocket at $6,350 for single and $12,700 for a family. I can tell you that when the Affordable Care Act came out in the 2010s, that was the original ceiling that basically the plan called for. That has now become what the norm is out there in the marketplace. I can tell you that is the norm regardless of industry. We are also seeing public sector move to that dollar amount rather quickly. I would anticipate probably somewhere around 60% of all of our public sector clients will be at that number within the next 2 years. Yes.
Chad, when you said what that maximum one was in 2010, wasn't there different gold plans? Wasn't there 4 different plans?
Yes, so that is what they basically set it at. I believe it would have been a silver or a bronze plan back in 2010. So that would be the change in color.
And would that same amount apply for each one of those 2 plans, the max?
Under our recommendation, it would. Basically, the government has said that they've escalated it each year. 2021, the amount for a single is actually, I believe, $7,800 is what the true IRS maximum is.
Thank you again.
As we move to slide 8 will represent potential changes to your high deductible or silver plan. Currently, it sets at a $2,500 single, $5,000 family deductible with a maximum out-of-pocket of $3,000 and $6,000. You will notice that this already is at that 2 times ratio that I talked about on the previous slide. First change is changing that maximum out-of-pocket and keeping the deductibles the same. See increasing that maximum out-of-pocket to $6,350, $12,700, talks about a mitigation of about $50,000. And the second recommendation or option that would be available is moving your deductible to $4,000 and $8,000. That would be about a $65,000 change. There is a secondary change that occurs when doing that. Under your current plan, under the healthcare reform guidelines, the deductible of $5,000 for a family can be met by one person. By moving to the $4,000, $8,000, it truly would mean that every individual is at $4,000 with a family not to exceed $8,000. Wouldn't be one person can get up to 5, one person would stop at 4 scenario. Any questions regarding plan designs or anything along? So next thing I do want to discuss is looking at contribution strategies. What this represents is the employee's portion, typically of premiums, as we would call it, that they're contributing from their paychecks on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly basis. Currently, the village pays approximately 88% of expected costs. I'm going to use the term expected costs simply because of the fact, as a self-funded plan, a very large portion of your costs are variable and will switch from week to week, month to month, even year to year, just depending on overall utilization. If the village were to flip from an 88% to an 86%, you can see that that mitigation goes to about $40,000. That would be a direct shift to the employees. That does also assume that all employees would continue to take the plan that are currently taking the plan today. As you decrease the amount or increase the amount the employees are expected to pay out of their paychecks, there is the inherent that fewer will elect the plan, thus overall costs will come down. The best way to really think about this is that for every 1% of change will represent about $20,000 in inflation. It's really a nice clean number to think about as we're going through this. I'm going to now step away if there's no questions and turn it over to Carmen, where she'll discuss how contribution strategy can basically fit in with a wellness program for the village to also look at. Thank you.
As Chad mentioned, discussions about laws trying to get a to make sure that they're healthy, trying to get them to get things caught earlier, making sure that those are less if they're caught. Here back in March, we kind of talked a little word out there, 65. About is utilizing that program. If employees get so many points, they could get a reduction in. So we would be increasing the premium contribution to, example here, 80%. Conversations that we had, we would push it up to 75, so that there's a little bit, say, them to be, I guess, accountable to try to get them to be, skin in the game, to try to get them to be a little bit wellness, things like that. So Go 365 is a product that we purchase outside of the employees who would be going through this program. They get so many points. If they get to that point level, reduction in their contribution. It helps then recognize that everybody can pretty much do this. It's not going to be hard sell. The employees going and walking, employees having a physical. It's real simple, real easy for them to get to a certain status. R&R uses it today. Like 90% of our employees are at silver status right now. So it literally is getting employees engaged in their wellness making sure they're having checkups. So that was one of the discussions that we were talking about. So the bottom line on there where it says the village pays 86% of the wellness, and for ones that are non into the Go 365, contributing 75%. So again, it gets the employees to have a little bit more skin in the game and making sure that they're accountable for their act with everything. Any questions?
Read my question first before I think about it.
It's okay.
Let's go to 365. Do they go to the regular positions?
So the nice thing about Go 365 freighters for biometrics. Okay. Now currently they come to the facility and it's not very advantageous for employees to come here. There's no other means for them to go and get a wellness checkup. This, they would be able to go to a certain facility that Go 365 has designated doctor, or we set up a wellness program. So there'd be 3 avenues for them to go and get their wellness checkup, their biometric. They would be able to get those easily.
They have to do that once a year? That for the, no, we're talking about employees, we're not talking about other members of the family, correct?
It does calculate towards other adults also, like the spouse or adult children. And there's incentives, like granted, we're kind of getting into this, but there are incentives that the employees can actually get to purchase gift cards for Target. This program, the savings that we would be able to do with this program in order to mitigate the costs for Go 365.
It's important for employees to go to the regular doctor. That's why I asked.
Correct. And
Otherwise, you're not going to get a buy-in.
correct. Absolutely. I mean, if they do is with this Go 365, have a biometric event here, they will get a printout that they can go and take to their doctor and talk to on the phone. Same thing with the outside vendor. They would get a printout that tells you what your triglycerides are. So they can go and
Just had that myself for my own situation, and getting a $15 gift card per se along with it. So thank you for the answers.
So for 2022, the marketing efforts we're going to do is try to go out to as many useful for you. Obviously, with the renewals of last year, we did go out to the market, had enough declines market effort because claimants. We're hoping this year we'll be able to get other competitive options for you. We'll go to the full insured market like we've always done in the past. We will go to self-funded, so a boutique like you are currently called, which would be Prairie States. And then we would also go to UMO, which is self-funded, which is a United Healthcare third-party administrator. So we would go to all these different entities to try to see if we can get Axiont. Axiont will do their marketing effort as well. Their stop loss carriers. Prairie States will have their marketing effort to their stop loss carriers along with, so we will have quite a bit of information to go through when it comes through the marketing effort. So we'll be able to see what's out there and if there's anything that's going to discuss this coming. Any questions on of it? We thought we would just throw in kind of things that are in general that we've seen in the last year. Obviously, pandemic and COVID have had lots of impact on things. So virtual visits is one of them, which to obviously try to understand that you do have virtual you know, if you don't need to go and run to the doctor, if you have the sniffles or an eye infection, if you got a child that's fever at 2 o'clock in the morning, that's what that option is for. So we're going to definitely do some more education to make sure that they're doing that. On here, as you see, trend of going to a virtual visit has increased immensely. I mean, pretty much during COVID, all you could do anyways, right? So, I mean, yes, I understand. So, and the employer-sponsored benefits, I know you guys do have Fidelity that is on your plan, that it's important for the employees to understand when we're in, that if we are changing those deductibles as out-of-pocket maximums, to get the correct benefits that are going to help them with those costs, like accident policies or policies. Accident policies are very key once you start getting your deductible. Because if you have an accident and you have to go deductible met, well, now you have another means to help you pay. Accident policies are very key when you start increasing your deductibles, but then making the employees understand or helping them understand that this is something they need to do. They need to go and try to help mitigate those costs that might be in their pocket. Workplace flexibility, I'm not sure how much that would pertain to you because obviously entities here need to obviously be at work. I'm sure you guys would flexible for them to make sure it's becoming more trend since pandemic of people. Mental health. We actually just talked about mental health the other day. Mental health is on your product, on your plan. So helping educate the employees to understand that they need to help it. Cancer, obviously, is the top thing that's been out there with stop-loss carriers. It's very high costing. You've seen on the high cost information the two major cancers that we've had within the last couple of years. There were $600,000 claim. Employers, 22% of the employers, this is through Sun Life. Sun Life is an insurance carrier. They've had 22% of their employees have $1 million. It's not uncommon nowadays to have some cost claims, but to try to mitigate those with different kinds of wellness or drug plans, they can help mitigate the costs. And then obviously a number of claimants exceeding 3 million has increased. They actually have become children. That's just because of some of the cancer treatments and things like that, trying to help those kids comfortable with cancer treatments. Those are just some trends. You can last thing is just a timeline. Yes.
In your trends that you had, the very first one you had in regard to virtual healthcare per se. Correct me if I'm wrong, that the government goes along with that as far as Medicare and to cover that kind of thing. It was covered during this virus time, but going forward, correct me if I'm wrong, is that they have to cover that where they're not covering that right now.
Right, you're correct. Yep. So yes, during COVID, virtual visits, depending upon what they were and what some of their insurance carriers did cover them percent. You know, obviously that was the act that they needed to take care of. Shift.
Still a significant discount though from the.
Absolutely. Then going and running to the doctor, I just had an example. I had a child hurt his leg, went to the doctor to go and have it checked out, and he streak just to go see the doctor to see that strain. There's not much I can do except have him do some exercise. So, but yes, virtual visits key for certain minor things. So the timeline is just a brief timeline to kind of give us an idea of where we're going to be at with the renewal meetings, things like that. Some of this information we've already gone. So like in July, we've already kind of talked about the plan design changes, had Oxygen come in. So we've been trying to do some of this information as we've been going on, doing the marketing effort starting this month, getting that out to the insurance carriers, getting those back, making sure that we information that we can get from carriers. In September, we're going to be getting the stop loss renewal. We've already requested an early renewal, so they do know that they need to get us those numbers so we can start making sure what we need to do with plan changes, what we need to do with carriers, if there's a carrier change. Marketing benchmark strategies, we'll kind of go through detail once we do get the renewal. The renewal is going to obviously dictate a lot of distribution strategies, right? Because it depends on what it's going to become. Regarding the plan design changes, those we can go forward. But it's going to be the contribution changes that would have to be once the renewal. So once we're in September, we'll start making final decisions. From there, your board decided regarding what's coming in, options we need to do to the employees. And in November, basically come here like we have explain to the employees what the changes are going to be, make sure that they're coming in, HPS, Delta Dental, having them get the real concept that the carriers are here for them to talk to.
I do have a kind of a follow-up question, and I don't want to get into real details because we aren't there yet. But if we go from the village paying 88% to 86%, that's obviously affecting our employees here, but it also could be affecting contracts. Is that right, Steve? As in any labor contracts that we have?
That is correct, and I'm just going to ask Aaron to correct me if I'm wrong here, but the contribution, so the premium contribution is subject to negotiations for police and fire. However, the design, so the deductibles, the out-of-pocket maximums, those things are not subject to negotiation.
All right, and I know we're going to have, there's a long way to go yet with this, so we don't have to talk details right now.
It's a complicated, it's again, scenario. I think once we get more information back from you next month, then we can make some intelligent decisions about how far we want to take things with deductible, things like that.
Good, thank you. Any other questions for the R&R insurance personnel? Yes, Aaron. Yeah. I assume we have a medical savings account as well, or they can contribute into a MSA?
Yep, we have a couple of different options that are available depending upon the plan that employees choose. And just to reiterate, and just in case people were watching online and couldn't hear Aaron's comments, we are trying to, this is going to be a significant issue for employees. Employees are going to see their costs going up. So we are trying to communicate this and explain to folks why this is happening, and to try to get their input so that we do it in a way that, is the least onerous option that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I have, obviously, I'm on the private sector side and I have some input in my employer's healthcare stuff. And if we are under a 10% increase a year, we're so ecstatic. It's amazing. So, I mean, that's just the trend that it is out there right now.
That is the reason why we wanted the employees to be engaged in the survey. See what would be most important to them. It's more deductible, because maybe they went. That's why we thought to do that. So it was just a matter of to them and then trying to get back what they to see.
Fully insured versus self-funded, are they going, is there a significant change in the way that that's handled? Really, as far as the employee goes? I mean, will they see a change?
Yes, they would see a change if you're saying like how the employees' claims come in to them and get an explanation of benefits.
Mhm.
Yes, they would see. Now you have Axion, you have HPS,
I see.
you have different entities in self-funded. So yeah, it is a little different on how, as in paying a claim from the carrier shouldn't be much different.
Mhm.
It's just going to be coming.
It's all part of the education process.
Correct. That's the open enrollment meeting.
Anyone else? Great, thank you very much for the information.
You're welcome. Just want to thank you guys for the business and yes, come in.
All right, with that, we will move to item C, which is the message board policy.
So we will be having the electronic message board live somewhere between August 26th and August 30th. So I put together a policy that's kind of off of the old policy that we had for the other message board that was not digital, utilizing some examples for message boards in the area. So I don't know if anybody has any, I will not be able to bring this in front of the village board before we begin utilizing it. But we have had great training. A number of us have had great training on how to utilize this board. And so I thought I would put this before you and have any questions.
Anybody?
I thought the policy was well done, well written.
I agree. I read it over and it makes sense.
And some things may change. It's something that we'll have to learn by experience.
Sure.
Because, even going through it, it depends on the shades and how big the letters are. And until we can actually utilize it, we're just going off of what other people have done. And so you might see this changes.
Trustee Myers.
So basically speaking, you will be in charge of the, putting the sign up and such?
Yes, so I will review it before it goes out weekly. However, I do have other departments that have access to put things on agenda or scroll. And then I would review them.
So are you actually putting them up, or are you just approving what they want to put up?
It depends. If something comes from the outside, I would be the one approving it and putting it up. If it's something that's from, let's say, the Park and Rec Department, the library,
Calendar event.
the calendar event planning, that would possibly be put up by a different, and then I would review it before.
The only reason why I ask is in regard to cross-training. I don't want to have just, I've always been a firm believer that we need to have more than one person that
Oh, yeah.
knows how to function the system. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into that system. Do we have a lot of training that's going to be given per se?
Yeah, so I had 4 other people get trained on this system already. And so they would all know how to utilize it just like I would. So if one of us were not available, another person would be able to step in and review the items before they go out.
Thank you, Aaron.
You're welcome.
Action on these? No?
I don't believe that any action is necessary. It's just, we wanted to review this before we, with the board, before we put it into place.
Thank you. With that, we will move to item D, School Resource Officer Agreement, and we received an email today, a draft agreement.
And I do have a few hard copies here if any of the committee members would like one. I can pass those out. This is an agreement that we've been discussing for several months now. I met with the superintendent of schools on Friday, and he provided me with a draft that they had prepared. I did send this to both Chief Snow, who's been involved with the discussions as well, and I try to put an extra piece in there. That's for another item. But I did review this, or give a copy to Chief Snow to review, as well as the village attorney. Chief Snow agreed that it reflected the negotiations that he's been a part of, and was in agreement with it. The attorney, as attorneys do, had a few technical items that he was looking to adjust, some typos, et cetera, but had no significant issues with it either. This does reflect what I've presented to the village board in the past, where the funding arrangement for the 2 school resource officers would change. In the past, it has been the school district has funded 75% of those costs. Under this agreement, the school district would fund 50% of those costs. So the village would be taking up a larger portion of those expenses. For some additional background, this was initially came about because the school board in their budgetary discussions was considering going from 2 school resource officers to 1 in order to meet their budgetary needs. This would allow them to keep both school resource officers, both the one assigned at the high school, as well as the officer assigned to the middle school. But again, there would be some additional expense from the village in order to make sure that that happens. I did also want to point out that typically this would go to the Public Safety Committee. I did put it on the GGF agenda, talking with the Public Safety Chair. And the reason for that is that we're hoping to hold a joint school board, village board meeting on August 30th. The village clerk put together a draft agenda that I'm sharing with the superintendent of schools and working towards that. And ideally, we'd like to have this on the agenda for approval by both the school board and the village board at that meeting on the 30th. So that's why you're seeing it before GGF this evening instead of at public safety, where it would.
Trustee Myers.
I'm glad to clarify that in regard to what I read, because it's only talked about 1, but you talked about with the 50% now, it's more amenable back to the 2 officers that we had, middle and high school.
Steve, just for my own benefit, this would be then just for an 8-hour day then, school hours, et cetera. What about summer? Does that fall into place as well?
The officers would come back to the village for assignment during the summers.
Okay.
So we would have access to them for that period as well. When there is overtime involved for the officers, if it is overtime related to a school activity, the school would pay for that overtime expense. If it was related to a village activity, the village would pay for that expense. We would also, the Police Chief Snow would be allowed, would be able to pull them out of the school as if it is necessary to fill in if there are emergency situations or unanticipated officers off where we needed to backfill some of the other patrol slots. That is, we would have the flexibility to do that under this agreement. So I don't anticipate that that would be a frequent occurrence, but we would have the flexibility to pull them back under this arrangement.
And does Chief Snow also then, he gets to name who the police officers are? The school does not have any approval in that area?
That's correct.
Okay.
Trustee Myers?
The only thing that concerns me to some degree, and I'm not speaking for the school system, but I would think that they would want to have some kind of cap in regard to the amount of days that an officer could be removed. For me, as a resident, when bad situations happen, you don't know when those are going to happen. I'd rather be the one to pay the overtime for our officer rather than not have him in that school. Very strong on that part. So I leave that up to Brian or whoever in regard to
But
that.
if it's something that is village related, we would be paying the overtime, only if it's school related for overtime.
That's not what I'm talking about, Mr. Chairman. What I'm talking about is in regard to an officer is gone and somebody needs to fill that staff, that's when that officer is going to be taken out of it. Is that not correct?
That is correct, and we've had discussions with the school district regarding that, and again, I think we don't anticipate it to happen frequently, but I think that the Chief Snow and I felt that if the village was going to pay a larger portion of the salary, that in situations where it might be necessary, and again, there's not a plan like, hey, we're going to pull them out every Thursday and Friday to cover vacations. But that was something that the village should ask for in return is, under certain situations to be able to pull them out. And I don't, the school staff, I don't think was concerned that we would abuse that. They drafted the language that you have in front of you this evening, and I think that again, it's not something that Chief Snow plans to do on a regular basis.
Thanks for explaining it to me, Steve.
Questions, comments? Great, thank you. If not, we will move to unfinished business, update on domain name to germantownwi.gov.
If I could,
Previously approved.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, but this is one I think
Oh, we
you
do
would
have
need
to take
to
action on that?
take action on this so that then it goes to the
I wasn't
village
sure
board.
since it was a draft if we are ready for that yet.
It goes back.
There will be some modifications to this, but you could, if I might suggest a motion that sometimes you utilize
Move with, this has to go to village board anyway.
has to go to village
Move
board.
with positive recommendation, move
Correct.
forward.
Make that motion then, Mr. Chairperson.
All right.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to move the SRO agreement with a positive recommendation to the village board. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, now unfinished business. Update on domain name. This was previously approved in December of 2020.
Okay, so I just wanted to update everybody that we are now starting the process of going through a domain change. So it was approved by the board back in December. The new village domain will be germantownwi.gov. So we're going to take this next month and go through the process of changing as many things as we can. We've already started talking to our website management team to make sure that that's done properly as well. We're hoping to make it live in September. However, I don't want to make a promise before I see how much there is. So I've started talking to the directors about trying to get together all the things that they know that needs to be changed and helping them through that process. So because we do host our email, it will be easy to people for the next 3 to 6 months will be able to send us emails to our old account and still we'll still be able to get them.
Get both.
So yes.
Use both domains.
Yes.
Yeah, that probably has more impact than the website itself is the email addresses.
Well, and just because there's so many forms and everything out there that if there's one that's missed and somebody emails that account, we want to make sure they're still getting a hold of somebody. So, so that will be ongoing unless we change something with our emails.
Great. Any questions on that? Comments? Thanks. Keep us updated. With that, we'll move on to the reports. Start with the financials, revenue expense reports.
It shows where the village is at as far as the general fund is. That was on 94.
Uh, 94, yeah. Expense report?
Question, just curious. It's on page 15 of the actual detailed expense report, and it's under fire protection. What is the explanation for significant overage of salaries for fire calls, and rescue calls?
15. So into the line item, have a explanation right off.
Just caught my eye as being broadly over the this particular time.
Okay. Health and dental plans.
That was included in the packet as well. To it. There are a lot of pages, I'm
Bring my
sorry.
finger out.
A lot of numbers.
Oh, here it is. That's actually pages 83 and pages 84 of your packet shows village health and dental plan. See where it's trending.
Questions or comments on that?
No.
All right, then we'll move on to impact fees. It's also included.
That starts on page 97 of your packet for library impact fee. And fire follow.
Questions on impact fees? That will move to accounts payable for the previous four. Questions, comments?
No.
Item D, debt payment report.
There was one addition at the bottom for TID number 8. Payment was made there. We'll see quite a few payments at the end of August, beginning September. So that will be coming.
Move on to monthly code violation reports.
Two items of interest here. There are two violations that were closed. One on Pilgrim Road from BEG Enterprises, where the accumulation of used equipment and trash around the building and property, and There was a follow-up inspection that item was closed. Also closed was the on Farm Valley Court, a landscape business, and that staff met with that owner. And the increased activity was actually due to personal landscaping, not to work-related landscaping. So that item was closed.
Questions on those? Trustee Myers.
The first one is on the list, which we've seen quite frequently as such. I know it was mentioned that looking for a possible property in Mequon per se. Do you have anything further to add that it's moving along or whatever? Because otherwise, whatever.
Yeah, well, actually, here comes the village attorney who may be able to provide more details than I can.
I figured you could. Thank you.
Details. Yes, they are in the process of finalizing their offer to purchase for the property that they've been looking at in Mequon. So we are working with them in terms of a time frame when that's going to finally take place, how their operation is going to move from the current location over there, those types of things. So operations at that site should be not much longer.
Does it have to go before the planning commission for Mequon thereafter?
A piece of their project does. They're looking to split some land off. It's a larger parcel, so they're looking to split the piece off that's presently used for that purpose. But other than that, there's no need for plan commission approval. So it's just that land split that will go.
Thank you, Brian.
Anything else? If not, we'll move to capital improvement.
That's on page 208 in your packet. I think this was something that Matthew had put together, just showing where
Once a month.
the items are.
Questions on that? If not, we'll go to letter of credit.
Nothing new to report here. No items that are coming due until next one is November 12th.
And the last item is summary of all village contract.
And
Any changes there?
no changes here. The next round of contracts are that will be coming due. They need to be renewed or replaced or the end of October.
All right, with that, we are agenda items. Meeting follow the same thread. September 20th. September 20th, is that okay? Since 6 o'clock?
Yep.
That we will adjourn the meeting at 6:59. We'll take a couple minutes before